let's actually start coding now. Yesterday was a lot of description. It was syllabus day, so it was a lot of what is this? Why are we here? Why are we here? What are we doing? I just want you all to know what you're getting into. Might not be an entirely pleasant experience, but it'll be an adventure. All right, so first thing I want to do, today's goal, or this episode's goal rather, is to get a HTML frame up and running, and a simple game platform we can code the rest of our game. Water. That we can code the rest of our game in. So, first thing you want to do is create a folder on your desktop with the name of your game. Mine is Dr. Rogue, obviously. And in that, you're gonna ignore this. You don't need the checklist file. This is what I'm using to keep track of all my notes, so you don't need that. You will need an image folder. Keep images in. These are some pre-made sprite sheets. I'll show how to actually make proper sprite sheets after the challenge is over. This is just to kind of bootstrap us into production mode. And I'll share these in the description as well from Imgur, or is it, how do you say, is it Imgur? Imgur? Not important. Okay. So fire up your text editor. I'm using Atom, which I'm honestly fairly new to. I usually use Text Wrangler or Kate for Linux. You probably have your own of choice, so go ahead and use that one. Microsoft Word is not a text editor. I learned that earlier on in my coding career. And we're going to save this eventually, there we go, as index.html. All right, so let's get our frame going. First, we're going to get our doc type. And I'm not going to explain this part a whole lot. I'm assuming that if you're following this, I'm going to assume that you know basic JavaScript. I probably should have said that in last episode. And if you know JavaScript, it's a safe assumption that you know basic HTML. So I'm not going to explain this a whole lot. You know what this is. This is a simple web page template. I'm not going to be using the DOM at all in this game. I'm going to be using pure old JavaScript. But a shell is needed. We might not need these head and body tags if we're not going to be including any elements, but I'm a web developer by trade, and this is my habit. So, all right. So got our bare bones shell. Let's get the title in place. Dr. Rogue. Pipe character. A spy. Spy thing. Cool. Save. I'm just going to open this in our browser. You'll probably want to use Chrome or Firefox just because those are the most, I think, well, the most best. My personal opinion, but yeah. Cool. Don't want to alienate anybody who wants to use Opera. You 5 people in the world. I'm kidding. Don't hate. So yeah, there's our title. Here's our very empty wasteland of a page. All right. And I'm going to add a canvas element here just temporarily for style testing. Canvas. We're going to delete this right away. All right. So let's get the styling now. Again, I'm not going to explain this part either. I feel if you're using JavaScript, once again, CSS usually goes HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript in the learning of the main 3. So PHP may or may not be a thing for you. I also use it regularly. Okay. Give our body a background color. I don't know why I minimize that. The background, we're going to go with a deep bluish purple. And I'm using hex values for the colors. If you're not comfortable with hex just yet, I'll explain that down the road as well. All right. I think the background is all we need, friend. Yep, there we go. Cool. Now for our canvas. And the canvas is the element we're going to do all of our drawing in. Caviar. All right. Same thing, I'm going to do the background. Actually, first, I'm going to do the display. And if you don't understand any of this, don't worry. This is all the CSS that we will ever need. We're just getting a simple frame running. So, and then what is it? Background. 1, 2, 3. all F means all white color, and all 0 means all black. And then everywhere in between is the varying RGB values. If you do know RGB already, I'm going on a side quest here. I apologize. If you know RGB, think of it as R, G, B, and instead of these being 0 through 9 in double digits, think of it as 0 through 15. But instead of 10, 11, 12, so yeah, don't type this. This is for demonstration. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we will go 10, 11, 12, and so on up. But instead, it goes A, B, C, D, E, F. It's a 16-base system. And then once you pass F, it rolls around on the next one. And then the next one moves up to 1 and so on. So I know it's not very intuitive. It will be once you get some more practice in, but that's how hex. That's the short, sad explanation for how hex works. So get that border. Yeah, if you've used RGB, you probably have a good idea what I'm doing here. All right, 2p dash x. Wow, 2px solid and same color. And then finally the margin. So 0 from the top. Stop it. 0px from the top. And then auto, make auto lines in the middle. All right, cool. I'm just gonna refresh this and see what we got, and there we go. There's our entire drawing space, and don't worry, it's not gonna be that tiny. That's the default values that the browser gave us. We're gonna change that once we get coding. All right, let's create our script section where we will live for the remainder of the series. Cool. All right, so every program begins with the main function. JavaScript, don't need one, but I want to keep this symmetrical, so in case anybody's following along in a different language, you'll be able to follow the same patterns. Today's going to be weird. Today's going to be a very JavaScripty day. Once you clear this hurdle, we'll be a lot more universal. All right, so game and main, this is going to be our main function where our game starts running. And to test it, see console, something on my eye, see I am the console, speak, cool. The cartoon was better, by the way. Right, so let's reload this. Let's access our console first. And I'm using Chrome on a Mac computer, so depending on your browser and computer combination, you can have a different access to the console. But just Google, how to find the console in my browser, and Google will show you. All right, here's our console. And for those of you, for anyone who's not familiar with the console, you can think of this like the Python shell or the terminal you use for C or Bash scripting, and if you haven't used those. If you've ever seen The Matrix, that movie from like 20 years ago, may or may not have aged well, depending on who you ask. Excuse me. With a Tank, the computer operator, and you have all like the data flying around, and he's typing commands into the computer, and it would change the world. That's what we have here with the console. So we have to actually run. Notice that game main is not running by itself. We have to run it ourselves. So game main, and okay, so it didn't actually run. I'm glad I made this mistake. It didn't actually run because it didn't include the parentheses. In JavaScript console, if you type a function without executing it, it'll just show all the inner workings. So if I did, let's say, no, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. We're just going to call a function. There's plenty of time to explain everything later. There we go. So you can see it actually runs a function once we call it from our console, which is great because this kicks off our program and everything runs, after that. But how many players are going to want to go to our page, find the console in their tools menu? Half of it probably didn't know it exists. Or you did. They're not going to go to the developer tools, open a console, and then just type it by hand. Like that. That's like the Flintstones pushing the car with their feet. We want it to call automatically, so when they immediately arrive on our page, the game starts running. So we can do that, and it's called Event Listeners. I'm going to look it up right here, actually. See, add, I already did. Cool. By the way, this is the Mozilla Developer Network HTML docs. This is like the best resource, I think, for JavaScript and Web API documentation. If you come across a function in, anywhere really for JavaScript and don't quite know how it works, you want to see like the inner workings and both the heads and tails of it, this is your resource. This is where you want to go. So, event target, add event listener. Okay, so the syntax, there's the target. I should probably read the description first. The event target method, add event listener, sets up a function that will be called whenever sets up a function that will be called whenever the specified event is delivered to the target. So, what that means, the target can be any object in our window structure. Let's say, so if you're familiar with the, my mouth is getting away from me. Okay, so if you're familiar with the document object model, you pretty much know what targets and nodes are and everything. If not, the target is the element of our page that we're adding the event listener to, and the event listener, when a certain event is fired off by our program or our system or anything. Excuse me, I have a cold. It's February. Anytime an event is fired off, it notifies that object in our window. That should have been much easier to say. Took me all 20 seconds. Okay, so I feel it's incredibly abstract, and I want to show it in action, so let's do that. So at the bottom of our script section, we're going to do window.add event listener. We can call a load event. I'll show this in a bit as well. Function. We can use an anonymous function, so once we execute it, it'll just disappear. Event. I know how to spell things. There you go. And then our semicolon. Cool. So the quick run through what this is doing. The window is like our parent object for everything in the game. So everything in this screen, everything the light touches, is a subchild of the window element. Okay. Add event listener, so we're adding an event listener to our window. A load event. So once our window finishes loading, it'll do whatever's in this function. And we're using an anonymous function, which means we're not actually naming it and storing it in memory. Game main is loaded in memory and callable by us in the program from memory. The function that we're creating, the function that we're creating here in the event listener is created when it's called and then dismissed right away once we're finished. So we're going to call it once, so that's okay. And this means that whatever's in here gets done when the page is loaded. So game, we want to run our main function. We're going to save. Now it's reload. And then you can see our line is running automatically, which is good. So now anything we do in game main will just kick off on its own. I'm going to get rid of this canvas now. All right. Cool. And that's the way. Now that that's out of the way. All right, so what's next on our to-do list? We got our frame up and running. Got our event listeners covered. Key input. All right. So we're going to do that pretty much the same way. We want to set up event listeners to pick up key presses. We're going to do a new function called game init. And we're going to put a lot in here. We're going to put creating our renderer and initializing all of our game data. We're going to put that in game init. And we're going to call it first thing in game main. Cool. Let's make sure it's running. Console.log. I'm testing this here, so don't worry about it. Smiley. Make Sure running. I'm gonna reload to test a lot in this here. There we go. Yep, cool. Put at the bottom, make sure everything ran okay. Excuse me. Rude. Okay. So to add our event listeners for key press events, we're gonna do the same thing. Window dot add event listener, and see, there's actually a list of events in here somewhere. Yeah, event type. See, type and then listener, so our function. Our list of event types. Where are we at? Yeah, so there's an error, there's a load like our window did. Something's unloaded. So focus. So if our mouse, if something in a window gains focus, open message. Blah, blah, blah. These are all super self-explanatory. But I'm looking for the key press events. Where are we? There we go. So keyboard events. So key down. These are actually different. Key down and key press. Key press is better for like a synchronous input, like a real-time game. We're going to use key down. So whenever a button is pressed, or a key I should say, the event gets fired off. So key down. We're going to use an anonymous function again. Let's see, event. Let's call it EVT. I'm lazy. Cool. And a semicolon. All right. So when a key is pressed, what do you want to happen? Let's see. Well, .log. Let's just test this out for now. Key. So whenever a key is pressed, you're just going to say, hey, you pushed the button. You're doing your thing. So reload. Press the keys. See? So whenever a key is pressed, it shows a message. Cool. But not all keys are the same in our game, otherwise one button would do all the things. So, what first? By the way, I'm well aware that my mug has a handle on it, but it also has the beloved cartoon character, a savage beast of a Tasmanian nature. And I'm not sure what the rules are regarding trademark characters on objects within the view shot, so I'm not going to risk it. Okay, back to the game. That's why we're here. So we're going to get our key event and store it in a variable. Var key pressed equals. We're going to go evt.keyCode. All right. So when this event listener is called, there's actually an object behind the scenes passed to it as a callback parameter. Remember you said a callback parameter? No. Well, I'm going to. It's a parameter that's passed to it, and that parameter is the event that was fired, which is the key that was pressed. The key code has the data from that key. So, if I do this, it should be logging. Okay, it's not logging anything. When it right. So it didn't log it yet. I really should record these like much earlier in the day. Key. But there we go. All right. There we go. Okay. You can see I'm pressing the keys now, and you get a number code. Those are the ASCII values. So these do match two different alphanumeric key characters, which we're going to do now. But what happens is, actually, I'm going to add this next part first and then explain it. So string dot from car code. That's a function. Excuse me. Okay, so this does this whole line here. So the key is pressed. It sends a key press message to our operating system, which sends that to our browser, which then sends that to the JavaScript interpreter, and that is passed through this function which is created as the event parameter. The event, we get the code of which key was pressed from that event. String.from car code converts that ASCII value into an actual letter that we would recognize. Letter that we would recognize. I know there is probably quite a few people out there who know exactly what the ASCII values are, and they read it just as easily as it were English. I'm not one of those people. So for programming, wow. Yeah, it's been a long day. For programming purposes, I want to get the actual alpha value itself. So I'm going to save that. We're going to store it as a character in this variable. So refresh, and there we go. Okay. Yes, any button on the keyboard that gets pressed. There we go. And this value will end up getting passed to our update function, which we'll do later. All right, so we got our key press events. I don't want these videos to get too long, and my mouth needs a break, so I'm gonna stop for now. And then next video, in the next video, we'll start working on our renderer. All right.